All right. What is an application server? We say it's a back-end server, a software framework that provides an environment for executing business logic and interacting with databases. It serves as the middle layer between the web server and the application server. Very, very important. But what are some of the key functions? First, it executes dynamic content generation. It processes user requests, it interacts with databases, and it handles business logic. Let's see how this really works. For example, a key function related to business logic execution. Take, for example, the application server is responsible for executing the business logic, which defines how data is processed, manipulated based on user request. This is the core functionality that determines how the application behaves. For example, in an e-commerce website, you go to Amazon or whatever website, eBay or whatever a website is it, when a user places an order, the application server processing the business logic, such as, remember, when they are doing that, the web server have to route it to the application server. The application server take it to the database. When that information is being retrieved, come back, and then the web server is the one that will display it for the user to see, right? And that's the connection. And just imagine, that's why I say everything has to be in scope. We're talking about firewall, we're talking about router, we're talking about switches and all those things. They are the card holder environment, because that's the environment, like everything that has to do with payment, passes, through all these other, mediums or devices that I've mentioned. And that's why it has to be in scope. And when they're accessing, you want to make sure you access everything. Okay. For example, they say when a user places an order, the application server processing the business logic, such as one, it will calculate the total order cost, it will verify the payment details, it will check inventory levels to ensure product are still available. Do you see? That's why we talk of business logic, called business logic, right? Then this is a typical example. You place that order, it's been sent to the application server, and the application server will definitely carry out those gymnastics. Have you heard of middleware before? Middleware services. This is another piece. So what happened? The application server also provide middleware. Remember, we're talking about the functionalities. We talk of core business logic. It also provide middleware services that support the functionality of an application, including services of security, transaction, and messaging. So the middleware services help ensure the business logic is executed correctly and efficiently. For example, do you see we have something here where we have to talk about authentication, we have to talk about transaction management, and we have to talk about messaging. But let's look at something. Oh, I think I didn't put a slide. Okay. They say application server manages connection to database server and handle the exchange of data, right? They can retrieve data from the database and store them back into it, ensuring that database is queried and updated as needed. For example, social media application. So when a user posts a status update or photos, the application server queries that to store the new post or update existing record. The application server check the database to retrieve the information and, for example, price description, and store the customer orders, right? Okay, this is also okay. So I was looking for that. Okay, so back to middleware. I just wanted to see, you talk about authentication, how, having authentication, management or transaction management or messaging. Do you see all that notificate system alert and all those things? So this is something that we want to take authentication. Do you see? Make sure users are verified, okay? Make sure they are being authenticated, and then transaction admission as well as messaging. All right, so that's something I wanted us to discuss. And if we look at this slide, users, application server, once you go through the middleware components of the application server, authentication of course, transaction management, and then, being queried through the database. Then we have session management. Application server also manage user session, which allows them to maintain user-specific information such as their login state or shopping cart content across multiple interactions within the application. For example, an online shopping cart. The application server keeps track of a user-selected product across multiple pages and sessions. Yeah, so when you guys go there and go to Amazon UK, you post stuff, you are going now to deep, yeah. This is just exactly what we're discussing, right? It's not like we have them in one page or system, and that's why we are talking about the application server here. Even if the user navigates away, the cart content is preserved until the user is ready to check out. So do you guys see? These are things that we do, but we don't even know how it works, in the back end. And user login. After a user logs in, the application server tracks their login session and provides access to their personalized content, such as account details or other history, right? And this is exactly what we've just discussed. If you look at the online shopping cart, you have it there, application server, the user login, and it all depends. If the user want to check out, they can go, they can come back, but it's there. So thanks to application server. Then we have another aspect of functionality of the application server. It has to do with load balancer, balancing as well as scalability. And these are all things that, again, as I said, for PCI DSS, we will definitely be seeing this stuff like this. For example, application server support load balancing to distribute user requests across multiple servers, ensuring that no single server becomes overwhelmed, right? This helps improve the availability and scalability of the application, allowing it to handle more users or requests without performance degradation. Do you see? Load balancer, you balance the load. For example, say, oh my goodness. For example, a large-scale web application, say in a popular streaming service like Netflix, the application server infrastructure uses load balancer to route requests to the best performance server. If one server becomes too busy, the load balancer directs the traffic to another, ensuring application remains responsive during the high traffic period. And that's why when you are traveling, you have multiple lanes on a highway. Why are you doing that? Is to balance the load, because if you have just one lane, everybody is just going, it will take forever to reach your destination. So just like, as we travel, same thing also happen. And that's why you can see different users. And of course, with the help of the load balancer duplication, it route that to different, application server. So do you see? But load balancer scalability with PCI DSS related first, again, it also, let's see how this is related to PCI DSS. It says protect all system against malware. This is a requirement, and regularly update antivirus software or programs. So load balancer ensure that servers are scalable and available during high traffic periods, while also preventing single point of failures that might be vulnerable to malware. Requirement 11, regularly test security system and process. Load balancer help distribute traffic evenly across, using regularly test security system and processes. So with the help of load balancer, it evenly, distribute traffic evenly across multiple servers to prevent overloading any one server. Testing should include load balancing configurations to ensure that no system becomes a target during a high traffic times. Do you see? So, and compliance areas to check: scalable architecture, ensure that load balancer setup does not expose sensitive system. Of course, so you want to check that they do not have any misconfiguration. High availability, ensure that application servers are configured for high availability and can handle a failure if one server without compromising PCI DSS compliance, ensuring a backup server can handle traffic securely. And if you all realize the core security objective of cybersecurity, we talk of the objective of CIHR. So talking of load balancer and all of this, talking of high availability solution is highly tied to availability, right? So for example, a high traffic e-commerce website load balancer ensure that traffic is distributed across multiple application server, preventing overloads on a single server and ensuring continuous availability for processing payment transaction. But how is application server related to PCI DSS, area to check for compliance. I just provided like some basic stuff for us to see and why it's important for us to understand all of this concept. Right? For application server, they said are central to application server are central to application that handle card holder data or process payment card transaction. In the context of PCI DSS, application server must be secured, configured correctly, and monitored regularly to ensure compliance with PCI DSS requirements. But let's see how this is related. One, business logic execution and PCI DSS compliance. Okay. Do you see requirement 6 said develop and maintain secure system and applications. And it says the application server is responsible for executing business logic and processing sensitive cardholder data. This means that it must be protected against vulnerabilities, input validation error, injection attacks, and kept secure to prevent unauthorized access to sensitive information. And that reminds me, I already have a video. If you go to everything IT related or cybersecurity related, it's a playlist. I eventually uploaded a video on SQL injection. So again, time and again, it's just advisable to understand some of this. Just understand, right? And that's why, what are some of the compliance areas that an assessor or you help your organization, if you guys need to be in compliance, the kind of artifacts that you're going to be requesting? First, secure code best practices, okay? You want to ensure that application server has a secure code that validates user input. I already have this video, so you all can check to prevent SQL injection, an injection that is common with SQL databases and other web applications. For example, ensure that business logic does not expose sensitive data to unauthorized access. What about patch management? Regularly update the application server with the latest security patches to close known vulnerabilities. What about security testing? Conduct regular vulnerability assessment and penetration testing to check for any flaws in the application logic that could expose cardholder data. And you see, these are all different requirements, right? Remember all the different server that we've talked, application and all those things, then all the requirement that we have, organization we need to take care of it, right? Or to implement. Say, for example, an online payment system ensure that the application server performs secure payment processing and properly handle authentication using methods like MFA, two-factor authentication for sensitive operation, right? Then let's talk about middleware a little bit, right? So you have a requirement 2 that said do not use vendor supply default for system password and other security parameters. Middleware services on the application server, such as authentication and transaction management, should not use default setting or credentials. Remember, at this point, this setting must be secure to prevent unauthorized access. Yes. So remember, talk about authentication and everything. You don't have to go with the default password, right? Because it's known, right? And that's why. And then we go to requirement 8, identify and authenticate access to system component. Middleware services should manage user authentication, ensuring only authorized users can access systems that process cardholder data. So do you see how all of this correlate? Then ensure middleware service on the application server enforce strong authentication policy. Of course, you're going to read that on their policy. Encryption, middleware should also make sure they have, encryptions, that will protect sensitive data in transit, for example, SSL or TLSS. For example, say for a financial application, middleware handles sensitive payment data, should authenticate user accessing the back-end system and encrypt all payment card transaction during processing to comply with PCI DSS requirement. That being said, we'll cover the last video that will summarize everything before we start our PCI DSS training. So we're going to talk about database, basis, types, importance as far as PCI DSS is concerned. So I'll see you all in this last video.